To EAL STAR. My name is Beth Southern and I am the founder and creator of both EAL STAR and EAL Hub. EAL STAR launched about 2.5 years ago, so I thought it was probably time that I updated the video that we had on the website as a kind of introduction to what we offer. EAL STAR has come a long way and we are always on a continual journey of improvement. We work really closely with some really amazing schools that are continually assessing and showing us kind of how we can improve, how we can change and what sorts of things we need to do to really keep things moving. So since we launched, we have added lots of new features and we have had lots of changes. So if you've not seen the video since a couple of years ago, it's definitely worth rewatching again. So the first thing to mention is that everybody gets a free trial, and the free trial is by setting up entirely yourself. You don't need us to do it for you. You can set it up. You don't need any payment details. You will not be hounded by us. We will not contact you. If you need to have an extended trial, please get in touch and we will let you know. Or if you set the trial up and then life gets in the way and you don't use it, please again get in touch with us and we will reinstate your trial for you. The reason I did that is because I was ahead of EAL and I know how life can get in the way. I also know how sometimes we forget to cancel subscriptions or we start a free trial and then it automatically charges us. We do not do that at EAL STAR. We also don't hound you after your trial. If it's not something that you're interested in using, that's absolutely fine. We are quite confident that it will be a really useful tool for you, but we're also realistic in understanding that it's not for everybody. And I'd rather you had a genuine free trial where you got to use it fully as a full product and then made that kind of informed decision. So what does it offer you then? So we have just improved our MIS integration. So we're now linked with Arbor. We are also in the process of linking with Wand. We have a CSV upload, a bulk upload facility. So you can download data from things like Sims and Bromcom, and then you can upload it into EAL STAR. Again, this saves loads of time for you. We have separate primary and secondary tests. People always talk about the kind of tests that we have and say, oh, how come the year 1 and 2 tests are the same? The thing to note is that we are testing English proficiency. We're not testing age-related expectations for pupils. And so we have 3 separate tests that look at years 1 to 3, year 4 to 8 and year 9+. The difference between these assessments is ultimately slightly different content in terms of what we would expect students at those ages to have come into contact with in school before. And kind of maturity of the images. We might not have quite such vector cartoon style images as we do with our younger children on our ones for our older children. Online testing of reading, speaking and listening skills and a teacher marked test of writing. I am strongly of the opinion that if you're assessing writing, you need to do writing. I don't think you can assess writing through typing as that is an entirely different skill set. So we do have it so that you are marking the writing paper, which is a written paper, but we have a really tight crib sheet, which we'll show you later in the video. Automatically produce pupil profiles, and now that we have this MIS integration and the bulk upload, that can happen for you automatically. You can download those profiles and share them with other people. We are the only assessment out there that is currently intuitive, so the test knows when a student reaches their level. Now, the reason that I put this in place is because I worked for a long time, for many years, with EAL pupils, and we would know that a child was coming in as fairly new to English. But we'd still like to baseline assess them for their starting point. But what we didn't want to do was have them sit there for an hour doing an assessment that we knew they would really struggle with. It created anxiety, it made them stressed. We already knew they were at the newer stages of learning English. So what this does is it baseline assesses them, it's intuitive, it knows when they reach the level and it ends the test. So for those new to English, the test for each skill might only be 10 minutes long. It pulls together a clear EAL register which records and tracks each of your EAL pupils. You can create teacher logins so that teachers can log in but not be administrators, so they're able to just view data, look at the pupils in the register, go through, look at the information, strategies, the next steps for different levels. You can also access the evidence vault, which we'll talk about later on, but ultimately is evidence that's been uploaded that they've done in different assessments or in different lessons when they've created a really great piece of work. You can also port between schools, so it's really good for multi-academy trusts or local authorities where primary schools have feeder schools into secondary schools, and then you can send all the data. Big thing to mention is that now that we are 2.5 years down the line, we have the data of hundreds of thousands of assessments. And the great thing about that is that we're able to really analyse that data and to churn that back through into our continuous improvement. So we're on this journey of improvement all the time. We want to have a really accurate baseline assessment. And sometimes we do get schools that come to us and say, oh, it seems really generous. The marks seem more generous than I would have said, or the marks seem a little bit more stingy than we would have said. And the thing to note here is that so far up until this point, we have things like the DFE proficiency scale A to E, but there isn't actually a standardised assessment that we can use to benchmark students. And so we've all been reliant on things like Bell Foundation, which is wonderful, but it's quite subjective. One teacher might say that child is their high band A, somebody else might say they're a low band B. So my recommendation here is that the more children that we analyse and assess using a platform such as this, which does a baseline assessment, is that we'll get a more level baseline for children. And obviously now this is being used in hundreds of schools. Eventually down the line, it could create a kind of a new baseline assessment for the student levels. So a band A would be quite clearly a band A, because hundreds of thousands of student data has gone into creating that level as being the right level. Now that we are on the EAL register here, I want to point out that yours will not look like mine. You will see that mine is covered in lots of stars, and the reason for that is because this is the master EAL register, so it's got literally tens of thousands of pupils all on this particular area. Now, what you will notice about mine is that it's covered in stars. And the reason for that is that all of our data is pseudo-anonymised. So it's really important for GDPR compliance. We are unable to see the pupil name. We're unable to see the username. Even if I click through to the pupil profile, we can't see any information. We can't see the photo. There could very well be a photo here that's been uploaded by the school. We don't have access to any of that. Everything that we do is using IDs, which you'll see is down here. If you have an issue with a pupil assessment, or if you have an issue with a profile or anything at all, we will always ask you to send through the pupil ID number. We don't need the name, we don't need anything else, because we can't use it, we can't use that data. So that's the most important thing to mention at the minute, that we are really, really hot on GDPR compliance. All data is stored in the UK. And we are able to send you all of our data sharing and data processing agreements. So do please reach out if you need a copy of those. One of the first things you need to do when you are either on a trial or subscribed to EAL STAR is add pupils to the EAL register. We often get a lot of questions around people saying they can't seem to find the assessments for speaking, reading and listening. Those ones won't show up until you've created pupils. If you're on a trial, you can create dummy or pseudo students in order to test it out. But ultimately, you need to add pupils to the register. You can either do that manually, and the minimum amount of data you need to include is their first name, last name, their date of birth and their year group. Then you would click Save the Student, and it would create over here underneath the picture area a username. It lets you know here the default password is EAL STAR 2025. That is the current password for this year. Students registered last year would be EAL STAR 2024. Students registered from the 1st of January onwards next year would be EAL STAR 2026. You can change the password, you can do what you want with that. It doesn't need to stay the same. We've just created it that way for ease. Once you've created those students, they would log in the same area that you log in using that username and the password, and that would open up access to all of the other assessment areas. You can also add pupils through importing now. We are linked with Arbor at the minute. We also have a CSV bulk upload option, so you can download data from things like Sims or Bromcom using a CSV file. You would then paste that into our CSV document and upload it back through. That would make it a lot easier for you to add a large number of students at the same time. Similarly, when you're using Arbor as a link, the first time that you linked with it, it would ask you to log in with your Arbor account, and it would ask you to confirm that you're happy to share the data. Currently, we only read data, and we only read the bare minimum amount of data needed to set up your pupil profiles. When your pupil has completed an assessment, all the assessments end up in your pupil assessment area by clicking on assessment at the top. Some of the assessments mark themselves, as I mentioned earlier in the video. Some do require marking, such as the speaking and the writing. And then you, with the writing, would input the result yourself. With the speaking, it's got a really tight marking crib sheet. So, for example, you can see here, the speaking assessment has not yet been marked, and you can see by clicking on them here, it'll give you a really tight crib sheet for marking. So the markers note is 1 mark for a correct answer of dog, 1 mark for more than a single word. So you get to listen to what they said.
This is a dog.
This is a dog.
This is a dog.
So that would receive 2 marks for identifying it's a dog and for having more than just a single word answer of dog. So you would click on mark assessment, you would enter in there 2 or 1, depending on how the marker scheme was being used. The next one here, 1 mark for a correct answer.
This is an orange.
This is an orange. So again, they would get 2 marks. And as they move through, they do get more difficult. Listen to the recipe here. You get them to think about what it is that they're doing. How many strawberries do you need?
You need 14 frozen strawberries.
You need 14 frozen strawberries, so you get 1 mark for correctly identifying 14 and 1 mark for more than just saying 14, so the child again would get 2. When you've completed marking that, the assessment, you would say complete mark and save, and it would go back through to the child's profile. With some of the reading assessment, again, you need to mark occasionally when they move further through the assessment. At the earlier stages, it marks itself. But if it has a red exclamation mark, it means it does need marking. So you would go to the assessment, and you can see it's part marked up to 59%. But the child has obviously made it quite a long way through the assessment. You can see actually they've got all the way through, so they're probably quite an able student. And you would click on here to see what it was that they needed assistance with. So they had to find the spelling mistakes, double click on them to highlight them in yellow. There are 9 marks available, and it tells you here 1 mark for each mistake, and there are 9 here that you can see. They've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you would click on mark assessment, you would enter 5 out of 9, and then you would click save. And once you've done that for the other couple that also have exclamation marks, again, that would appear in their profile. So when it's gone to their profile, you would move across and your EAL register is here. So you would click on a child and you would have a look at the profile. So you can see here, for example, this pupil has taken the reading assessment and the listening. So you can see the listening the speaking they've obtained a band C, and the reading an A. And it's quite normal to have a discrepancy like that, because we know that children learn to speak and listen earlier than they do reading and writing. So those always are more proficient in the early stages. Once they've got those marks there, the next steps guidance is here. So the next step guidance here for a band A reading looks like this one here. And you can see it's specific to the band and specific to the skill, and it's really great to share with teachers, lots of ideas that they could use for students at this level, and examples of reading and how you can kind of develop reading in lessons. And again, for the speaking and listening band C, you can see specific strategies that can be used here, and again, examples of speaking and listening ideas and activities. Features that we offer that often I forget to tell people about, and actually I think it's really lovely, is that when you have a pupil and you go through to their pupil profile, if you scroll to the very bottom of the pupil profile, you can see that there is an evidence vault here, and you can upload images or files, anything you want to put in there that might be something that the child has done in school within a different subject area, or as part of a different assessment, or in some way to build a picture of that child. So if you had a teacher come to you and said, oh, they did a really great piece of work or piece of writing or some sentences, you could take a picture of it, or you could upload the document to that evidence vault. Now, when you have teacher logins, you can create logins for teachers, so that teachers are able to log in without having admin rights. That's just essentially viewing rights. So teachers can log in, they can go to the EAL register, they can pull up the pupils that they work with or they teach, and they can see then the evidence vault. Within this pupil's profile, if there was an evidence vault, it would be down here. There would be information down here for what documents were part of that evidence vault. So again, it creates a bigger picture of the child. It's a nice way of creating a more holistic profile for that child. I added the downloads area again. This is something new, and you can see the first thing you want to look at there is the EAL STAR user guide. That really explains how to get started, and almost all of the questions that I get emailed or through on the chat to the team are associated with things that are already in the user guide. So please do have a look at that user guide first. There's also information there for how to connect to things like Arbor. We're about to add in some information for how to do your CSV upload as well. The equivalent assessment scales are here to link NASIA and the Common European Framework. Again, that gives you a ballpark idea of what our grades are in comparison to those other assessment scales. All of the strategies are here, including the old strategies. Some people are still using them and still like them. Again, it gives you more options to share with staff. If you're struggling when you've read the user guide, there's a frequently asked questions page at the top. Now this takes you back over to the ealstar.co.uk, and there's absolutely loads of questions here. We've tried to add in as many as we can whenever we get the same sorts of things asked often. We've added all these questions in, so you can see information here, particularly things to do with troubleshooting. Why can I only see the writing assessment? That's that one there when people haven't usually included pupils in the EAL register. So hopefully that's useful for you. Do look at the user guide, do look at the frequently asked questions, and hopefully that will answer your questions. If not, then you can always go onto the chat at the bottom down here. You can see there's a chat with a box down here, or you can contact us at the top here. There's emails and a contact form as well. gives you a flavour of what EAL STAR is. It has been a really, really mammoth task to create this, and we are all busy teachers and consultants that work here at EAL STAR, and so I have priced it in a way that I feel is fair. I know that there's not much money from being a head of EAL, from being a senior leader. There's not much money in EAL. It's not ring fenced. So I wanted to create something that was as accessible as possible for as many schools as possible. If you need a smaller package, get in touch with us. We are really nice here, and we're here to help.